Hello, and welcome to Slice of Wine, the podcast that gives you snippets of the people, places, and innovations behind the barrel. I'm your host, Amy Cronin, and today I'm here with the inimitable Gary Fisch. He's the founder and owner of Gary's Wine Marketplace, a prominent retail destination that started in 1987 and has grown to 4 locations in northern New Jersey, as well as a newer shop in St. Helena. Gary has been lauded for consummate innovation and remaining community centric through its growth, among many other things. And Gary, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's great to be on this morning.
Yes, well, it's nice to be on the West Coast where there's not snow.
It's a beautiful day here. Although we're supposed to get a little rain, but I don't believe that.
Yeah, and it's like cryo. You need a little anyway. Well, so first of all, Gary, people can't seem to stop giving you guys awards. Like best overall wine selection from Wine Enthusiast, top 10 wine shop from Food and Wine. I don't know how many times Beverage Dynamics has given you Retailer of the Year, but it feels like it's been many years. And the list keeps going on. So I guess my question to you is, has it always been this way? Did it just start out like this? How did you get started? What was it like?
Well, first of all, thanks for mentioning that. We're always honored and humbled by the acclaim that we've gotten. And it doesn't come without a lot of hard work by a lot of people. As we've grown, everything's changed, the industry's changed, we've changed as people. So we keep, as you would say, innovating and changing, which has caused these accolades to come our way, which is always very exciting. I'm not sure I answered your question, but
What was it like back in the day? Was it like this? Was it always like this? How did you get started in this thing?
oh, that's a long story. That's a long time ago. I was when I graduated college in a long time ago and got a degree in political science and a minor in English, which back then was very employable by nobody.
Still is. So that's
It's still not employable probably now. It was a great degree. I learned a lot in school, but I was not preparing for a job. My father was a liquor salesman, so when I graduated college, I started selling liquor, which was a horribly uh, humbling experience. It was terrible. They gave me
and that
unsolicited.
still is too. Yeah. So
Yeah, selling, especially cold calling, was not, I mean, it was, I'd walk into an account thinking that I knew something which I really didn't know. They didn't train you back then. I had my briefcase and my book, and they would say, I'll take a case of something. I don't even know if we carried it. I'd say, yeah, okay. And I'd write it down. I'd go in the car, I'd look through the book, and we didn't carry it. I'd go back in and say, I don't carry that. Can I have those 3 boxes of napkins I gave you back? Uh, but fast forward, my first full year, at the end of it, there was a vacation in August, and I went to Napa Valley. I was actually meeting a buddy in San Francisco who was an accountant and said, if we go to Napa, you can write off your entire trip. So I said, oh, I'll go to Napa and write off my trip. And we only had one Napa winery at that point, and it was 1979. It was Louis Martini. So in 1979, I came and visited Louis Martini Winery. And I'm coming to see the CEO of Louis Martini Winery, and a farmer greets me. And I had no idea that grapes were really an agricultural product and that a farmer would be the owner of the winery. My first visit was to Manischewitz in Brooklyn, and there were no grapes or winemakers, and so it was crazy. And he took me around. It was harvest, so he had me taste grapes that were just coming in on the trucks, and they were tractor trailers, so it was a different world back then. We went in the cellar, and I tasted probably 20 varietals he had: Barbera, Riesling, dry Riesling, sweet Riesling, Pinot Chardonnay,
wait,
Cabernet.
Chardonnay?
Yeah, it was called Pinot Chardonnay. So I fell in love with the concept of selling my friend Louis Martini's wine. And I came back to New Jersey determined to sell my friend's wine. And so I took all the wine classes. I took Kevin Zarelli's Windows of the World a few times, a bunch of other stuff, and then nobody sold California wine in New Jersey. So we had contests every year, and I sold 50 cases of martini wine, and every year I came out. So every year I got more re-energized and learned more. So by the time I was in my early 20s, I knew a lot about wine, and I just loved it, and I loved selling it. So that's kind of how it began.
So then how did you get a liquor license? So you're selling Louis Martini's wine through the distributor you're working with.
Yeah, I worked for a wholesaler, and one of my accounts had a tiny store, and for many reasons he needed to sell it, and he couldn't take it back because of the ABC. So he asked me if I'd be interested because it was a good wine shop. He thought it could become a good wine shop. And so we literally went out on the lamb, so to speak, and borrowed money, and he made the payments long enough so that we could afford to pay it based upon what he thought we would do. And in 1987, I literally jumped ship and started working in our retail store. So, and it was only 7 days a week open to close, so it really wasn't that hard.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Well, no, and actually, that's a very good point because running any business comes with, it's a lot of work and it comes with some challenges, but running a retail business comes with an extra set of challenges. And, including things that are not glamorous like thievery, you know? Have you ever had experiences with that and how did you how did you handle those situations?
Well, it's funny that you should say that, and I'm glad my wife is not near me because every time I tell the story, she gets upset. Um, in our Wayne store, which is our largest store, 24,000 square feet, we have this beautiful wine room, which is totally glass. Um, and so you could see in. And my wine buyer suggested that we had 3 bottles of Petrus left from the futures. So we got a future. We bought, I don't know, 5 cases of Petrus. We had 3 bottles left over. He said, "Why don't we put it in the wine room and we'll see what happens?" So he puts it in on Friday, comes in Tuesday, and it's gone. And 1 bottle's missing. So he says, "Great, we sold it, worked." He looks at sales history,
Not there.
no sales, no. So we're down 1 bottle. So we look on our cameras and we have a picture of a guy going in there and leaving, but with nothing. So we now have the picture of the guy. The next Monday, he checks. We're now 1 bottle, no sales. So now somebody stole 2 bottles.
This
So
is a
now we have
fancy thief, by the way. This is
this
a thief with
fancy
good
thing, by
taste.
the way.
Yeah.
Oh, and this time we saw him go in. He brought a basket in. He put a lot of wine in the basket. Then he took the 1 bottle of Petrus out of the basket, was holding it, walked around, dropped the basket, and just literally walked out of the store. And the first time he was in a rent-a-car, and the second time he was in a taxi. So a week later, I'm getting ready to leave, and we have his picture up everywhere. So I saw this guy come in, and I'm like, "Oh my God, it's the same guy. He's got a hat on. Last time he didn't. He's got but it was the same guy." So we had a security guy working for us, internal security, and I had one of the kids go get him, and I said, "I'm going to go outside, and if he's by taxi, I'm going to pay the taxi to leave." So we have a chance to catch him. So as I'm standing outside, he knows we made him, so he comes kind of charging out with my security guy. Now, keep in mind, my security guys at that point was probably 70, uh, 5'4", ex-Marine, but ex-Marine a long time
Right.
ago.
It wasn't The Rock today. It's The Rock in
Right. And so I see him running into the parking lot next to ours, not in our parking lot. So I said, "Oh, that's where the car is." So I run after him. And then he jumps in the car, and I assume he's a thief, not a murderer. So I stand behind the car and say, "Stop, you're not leaving." And he jams on reverse. He puts the car in reverse.
Oh my
And
God.
now
He
I
ran
did the
over
only
you?
No, I did the only prudent thing possible. I jumped on the back of the car.
Oh, good. Okay.
So now I'm holding onto the car and assuming he's going to stop. And now he's doing, you know how you back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And after like the third time, I'm like, this is not going to end well. I slid off the side of the car, and I was very proud of myself because I nailed the landing.
Yeah, that's really good. That's amazing.
And that was all I
Impressive.
remembered, except for then I saw they showed me the video of me then chasing the car down trying to catch the car. Went on the highway. Um, Fast forward, like 10 minutes later, I get in my car to go home because it was the end of the day. And my wife calls me and says, "So, how was your day?" I said, "Oh, great. How's your day?" Never mentioned it. I get home a few minutes before. I say to my son Mike, I said, I told him what happened. He said, "Oh my God, that's crazy." I said, "But mom called and I didn't tell her. What should I do?" And he says, "Well, as soon as she comes in, you got to fess up. You can't wait, you know." So I said, "Okay." So she walks in and I start to tell her, I'm like, "Where'd Michael go?" He was nowhere to be found. I went upstairs after we talked. He had the headphones on, music. He didn't, just in case, he didn't want to be a part of it.
He's like, Mom is gonna flip.
Yeah, she wasn't that happy. Fast forward about 6 months, we were in San Francisco for an event, and he got caught stealing a Picasso in San Francisco. And so his name had come up, and it was our guy. So we're at dinner, and I remember distinctly Bruce Cakebread was there. And so the story came up, and I told the story. He said, "Isn't Petrus Merlot?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, would you jump on the back of a car for Cakebread Merlot?" I said, "Absolutely not." It was terrible.
So, your advice to other retailers would be
Let it go.
let it go. Let it go. Let it
It
go.
was a drag. It was a terrible mistake.
That's crazy. Was he drinking the wine or was he just like, was he trying to resell it?
So it turned out he had worked for Per Se, I believe, as a som and then got fired or something.
Oh, so
And
he
the
knew.
word was that somebody had gone, he lived in Hoboken for a while, and that there were always great empty bottles of
Mm.
wine.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and Picasso's on his wall.
And then he
So
has
it's stolen
Picasso.
like
He
Picasso.
was living.
My feeling is he probably met a really, really rich woman and wanted to have her fall in love with him and wanted to prove that he
Mm.
was of substance and
Oh,
figured he'd steal stuff. I don't know.
that's kind of romantic. That's a nice way of thinking about
Well,
it.
that's my novel, but I
Yeah,
wanted to kill
he could
him. I
just
was
be a
so
bad
upset.
guy.
That was
I mean,
terrible.
he kind of did try to kill you. I think,
Yeah,
you know?
I wouldn't put him I wouldn't put him in my friend list.
No, 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 no. Oh, so kind of switching gears from near life death situation, saving Merlot. You know, you've been known for innovation, and a lot of people say, you know, like need breeds innovation. What would you kind of say were the bigger innovations that Gary's has had, and what was the driver behind them? Like, why'd you do it?
Um, so I would the best way to start is, the most recent would be the pandemic, obviously, you know, and for everybody, it was either a catastrophe waiting to happen, depending on what business you're in, or an opportunity. And as you said, my son was working towards his MBA while the pandemic hit. So he was staying with us. And he was helping us with technology for our business. And we just started a mobile app, and I know you're familiar with some of that. And at the time the pandemic started, we had like 2,000 people signed up for the mobile app, which is nothing. And most of our business was retail and running through our website. And I'll never forget the governor of New Jersey was going to announce what he was closing on. And so around March 17th, 18th, he said on Saturday the 21st, I'm going to announce what's closing. Well, our stores became bedlam. We were under the impression he would never close the liquor stores because New York wasn't going to. And also there were issues. So we believed we were going to be kept open. Consumers didn't care. They came plowing in. So we were worried about the health and welfare of our teams. So Saturday morning we closed. When we closed Friday night, we didn't reopen. Uh, and we sent out emails and texts and social media saying that we're open for only curbside pickup and local delivery. And thank God we had the mobile app in place.
So did you have that in place, the curbside delivery? You were able to turn that on right away?
So what happened is we now were able to do all the curbside and local deliveries, but we didn't have the staff. So everything changed. And I remember one of the managers saying, "We can't stock the shelves fast enough." And I said, "Stop stocking the shelves." I said, "You have to think differently. You're no longer a retail store. We're fulfillment centers." So we went and we were doing it from 10 to 6. That's how we were open for curbside pickup. I said, just because we're open 10 to 6 for curbside, I want you to have teams coming in at 5 in the morning, and I want the last team leaving at midnight. So we went to a three
Oh,
team,
wow.
like
Yeah,
warehouse
this is a
shift.
warehouse now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We then also we hired as many people as possible. We added, I think, about 70 to 100 people through the pandemic in New Jersey. And Mike found from Marriott, they furloughed all their rewards people. So we hired about 4 or 5 Marriott rewards people and took our phone system offline because the stores couldn't answer all the phones. So all the calls went into the Marriott rewards people who became that when you called Gary's, the person you talked to was a professional service. So they could at least get the
Yeah,
information and
yeah.
filter it.
That's the best customer service any store has. I can't.
It was awesome. The first week or two, the people were freaking out because we couldn't get delivery. And I was always like, well, of course we're going to be behind schedule, but suddenly having people to answer the phone that were professional. We went to Hertz because I heard that they were in trouble. And we rented a dozen trucks from Hertz really inexpensively. And so we really upped our delivery game. And we just did everything we can do with the goal of getting orders filled first. Worrying about profitability later, worrying about anything else. Let's service the guest as best as possible. And when everything's over, we'll figure out if we made money or not.
I mean, this, like, like getting the Marriott Rewards, team using the Hertz trucks, flipping and saying, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna stay open. We're gonna do these, 3 shifts." All of this, I mean, there are business owners and then there are just entrepreneurs, and you definitely fall in the later bucket. Um, and entrepreneurs are not normal. Like you you have to like have a special, you're a special breed, like, because you're driven by something that other people they just don't have that drive to make, to go the extra mile. Have you always been like this? Like, was this, you know,
Yeah, I mean, I was a terrible student. And I joke, and I truly was, but I was always driven to be better and do better. Whether it was, when I was young, I had a candy store in my garage. That's a whole nother story. So I've always been in retail. Um, but I talk to people and I look around our stores and I say, it could be better, no matter how good it is. What can we do better? Could that guy's uniform look better? Are the shelves fronted? Do we have enough product? Do we have the right mix? So I've always been driven to be better than we were yesterday. No matter what yesterday was, we have to be better
and
and
are
do better.
you a direct line, like, how are your stores operated? Are you have a store out in California now, which we hardly even got to talk about, but it's amazing. If anyone is in the Napa Valley, they have to go to Gary's Napa Valley. Um, a- and, in 4 stores here, how are these stores run? Are you working directly with all of the store managers? Is there, yeah, yeah?
No, I mean, it's me and my son. I mean, Mike and I, he's more of the technology and stuff, but he's learning retail. He's overseeing HR. He's overseeing the finance side of it. We have weekly meetings with the GMs. They're always texting me back and forth. So it's a straight line of communication. And I think that's the best. Napa, I'm here a lot because it needs me more right now. It's the newest store, and we've had the exact opposite of New Jersey. It's tourist driven. So the first 2 years we've been open have been a challenge getting help, and also doing business because of the pandemic.
You've been in business for 35 years, and obviously the COVID sort of era was different for everybody, but did that teach you? I mean, like, after being in business for 35 years, you're like, oh my gosh, I think I've seen everything, right? Um, did you learn anything? Do you feel like, from that pandemic era that we're hopefully finally getting out of?
Yeah, I guess a decision making is crucial, and and it always has been. And it's also the rapid pace in which you make decisions. And in some cases, you have to, whether the decision at that moment in time is right or wrong, you've made a decision, and then you figure out how to either monetize that decision or how to make sure it works. And that's kind of what Michael and I did constantly. We would see a problem, we'd figure out how to solve the problem. Frequently, that then caused a new problem. So so then you solve the next problem, and so it's operating quickly, and trying to take care of people while you're doing it as much as possible, so that people knew that we were on their side. We paid people more money. If somebody was afraid to come in, we didn't fire them or dock them pay. We tried very hard to take care of people as much as humanly possible.
Amazing. Yeah. It's and how do you think just sort of to as sort of like a final thought, what do you see in the next year? How do you think this is things are going to change, and how do you see business going? Any lens that that you have? Does anybody have a lens?
Well, yeah, the lens is it's
Yeah.
foggy out there.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, it's real, it's still going on. The supply chain is not a joke. Obviously, with the horrifying stuff going on in the Ukraine, with oil, which then how it affects oil pricing and stuff. But a human, sacrifice is terrible. So I think people are thinking differently again, and I believe that will be at least another year before the supply chain gets better. We get less disruption. We have inventory, vintage issues coming, with certain regions, including, the West Coast and Willamette and Napa in particular, that have had some issues. So what we do as retailers, we buy where we can as fast as we can. So we're buying as much Napa Valley 18 and 19 Cabernets as we could find anywhere. We're back and we're buying a lot of Bordeaux. We're buying a lot of so we just we
Sounds like
have
a
that
lot of Merlot
luxury
to protect.
of I know. Thanks for
I know.
bringing that up
Liz is gonna be
again.
like, "Oh my God, don't bring it up." Well, Gary, it has been such a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much. I think your insights are things that business people in and out of the wine industry can really take away. And it, let's just have a water toast because I know it's still morning, but it's great to see you.
Uh, I have a
Oh, I need one.
yeah,
Yeah, all
okay.
right.
Tell Mike. And thanks for having me on the show. It's been my
Thanks a lot.
pleasure.
Cheers.